Throughout the Duncan Egg stories, several clues are given that indicate that Sir Duncan the Tall was in fact never knighted. To begin with, in the very first scene depicted in the story, Sir Arlen has already died, and this is the only time we see Dunk with him at all. All the other times are simply flashbacks, and from Dunk's point of view. We never see Dunk interact with Sir Arlen, or hear his side of the story, and probably never will. Once he arrives at Ashford Castle, Dunk goes to enter his name for the tourney, and is questioned for the first time about being a knight. The very first person that Dunk tells that he's a knight was Egg, but to him he was just a random orphan boy, who also questions whether he's a knight.
I'm a knight, I'll have you know. You don't look to be a knight.
Now, even as Dunk is going up to meet the master of the games, the guard escorting him asks if he's going to enter his master's name. And once Dunk tells him that it's his own name he means to put in, he thinks he sees the guard smirk. So even if he was actually knighted right before Sir Arlen died, and he still has his old clothes, then it's understandable that he wouldn't look like a knight. But the story just started and Dunk is constantly being questioned about being a knight. So here he is, a boy of 17 or 18, for the first time telling a grown man that he's a knight.
My lord's tourney is a contest for knights. Are you a knight? He nodded, wondering if his ears were red.
Dunk is clearly nervous about telling people that he's a knight, something that any common boy or man would be proud of. Dunk does remember the stories that Sir Arlen told him, so it's certain that they did in fact spend time together. But we don't really know that Sir Arlen ever planned on knighting Dunk, or if he even trained him. And since Sir Arlen was an old man, that probably never happened. The next clue comes before the trial of 7. Dunk needed more knights to fight with him or else he would be declared guilty. So Raymond Fossaway got on one knee and asked to be knighted. But Dunk hesitates, twice.
Do it, Sir Duncan. Any knight can make a knight.
The biggest clue I think is a single sentence that Dunk thinks to himself as he's talking to Egg. After finding out he had been lying about being an orphan boy and was really a Targaryen prince, Egg tells him that he did it just because he wanted to be a squire. Then Dunk thinks about how he knows what it's like to want something so badly that you would tell a monstrous lie just to get near it. So again, here's Egg talking about lying just to be a squire, and Dunk reflecting on how he lied just to be a knight. In the second book, The Sworn Sword, as Dunk falls asleep, he dreams about burying his horse Chestnut and crying. He then sees Sir Arlen, Prince Baelor, and his son Valar, who died during the Great Spring Sickness. As he tells himself that he's not to blame for that, Dunk dreams of Sir Arlen telling him he will kill himself with this folly. So what was this folly? He's obviously referring to his selfish and foolish choice to not only lie about having been knighted by a recently deceased man, but to then enter a tourney that through his actions ends with the death of a prince. Dunk's story of how he came into knighthood is that after Sir Arlen's squire, Roger of Pennytree, had died in the red grass field, he needed someone to tend to his horse and clean his armor, and that he promised Dunk to teach him sword and lance and how to ride a horse. But even saying the name Roger made Dunk feel guilty. Guilty that he stole his place. And the word stole is important here. Roger died fighting, honorably. So why would Dunk feel guilty of Sir Arlen simply finding another squire? I think it's because Sir Arlen really just needed someone to tend to his things, and that he never intended to have Dunk officially as a squire. So Dunk living this lie of supposedly having been Sir Arlen's squire and then becoming a knight is effectively stealing the place of Roger of Pennytree. Perhaps from the time Sir Arlen asked Dunk to tend to his things up until he caught a chill and died, maybe only a few months passed, or maybe even weeks or days. Dunk then thinks of how if there had never been a Blackfire rebellion, Roger would still be alive somewhere, and be a knight in some place. Then he says, a truer knight than me. And even if he's a true knight or not, once he takes on that role, Dunk always showed qualities of a true and honorable knight, and much more honor than some of the real knights he meets throughout his life. And even if he never went through a fancy ceremony of a sword touching both his shoulders, Dunk was still a knight who remembered his vows.